Today's conversation is all about the now or never moment that organizations have with their customers and consumers. And our expert that can shed some great insight on this topic is Shep Hyken. And Shep, you're a customer service and experience expert who loves to create moments of amazement between organizations and customers. I love that. Moments of amazement. What does that mean for you?
Well, and actually, I use two words. I talk about moments of magic and creating amazement. So let's separate what the two are. To me, the choice is you give a customer magic or misery, or you stay right in the middle, and I call that mediocrity. So we have, and a moment of magic isn't about going over the top and blowing people away with every single interaction you have with a customer. That's impossible to do. But when you create amazement, it's because you're stringing together these moments of magic that never dip to mediocrity. And what that means is that you have customers saying things that are not out of the ordinary. This is exactly what they expect. I love doing business with them. And I use the word always because there's this consistent and predictable behavior. I love doing business with them, the company, because they are always so helpful. They're always so knowledgeable. They always get back to me quickly. Even when there's a problem, I know I can always count on them. And you can put always in front of these positive statements. And by the way, none of what I just mentioned is over the top. It's exactly what customers want. Few companies are able to consistently and predictably deliver an experience, the always experience of meeting basic expectations. And when they do, that's when customers say they're amazing because, and you can again fill in the blank with all those statements I just made. And once in a while, when there's a real problem, or maybe you see an opportunity, and I'll give you a couple of quick examples. If I'm a server at a restaurant and I overhear a couple talking about how it's their 10-year anniversary, I could surprise them with a glass of champagne or maybe a special dessert at the end. That's above and beyond the normal great experience they're going to have. Or maybe a customer calls me with a super big issue, a problem, something that seems unsurmountable, and we go over the top, all in to take care of this customer. And they say at the end, wow, I so much appreciate what you've done for me. You've just restored my confidence, and you've made it obvious why you're the choice of who I do business with. So those are over the top examples, but you can't wait for those rainy days, if you will, to be able to do that. You need to be able to deliver consistently and predictably all the time. And that's what amazement is. It's a little bit of a long answer, but it's an accurate answer.
Perfect placement. Absolutely. Yes, because as we talk about, the exponential consumer and these now or never moments, it really is. As a consumer, I've just moved into a new home. So I've been going with all sorts of new interactions of having to deal with organizations specifically. And when I'm wowed, oh, I talk about it, right? I'm
Yeah.
telling my mom, I'm telling my friends, oh, I had such a great experience with my phone company, or everything just transferred right over. So I see what you mean. And with all of your years of experience, I mean, you've got so much data and research on this. As we get into our conversation, why don't you remind our listeners and our viewers a little bit about your background? You're a New York Times bestselling author, and this is your expertise.
Well, yes, and I love it. I've been doing it since the very beginning of my career, less than a year out of college. And it started off with the whole idea of customer service. And if you really want to go far, far back, and Amelia, you and I have maybe talked about this on prior interviews, I did magic shows when I was 12 years old for birthday parties. And by the way, I eventually graduated to working in nightclubs and comedy clubs and corporate events. But in those teenage years, I was doing magic at birthday parties, and I built up a thriving birthday party business. Now, I had no idea that what I was doing is exactly what every major company does to create a great experience and find out if they're doing a great job and how they can improve. My mom and dad made me write thank you notes to my customers, the clients who booked me to do these shows. My dad said, follow up after the show and make sure they were happy and ask them specifically, what tricks do they like the best? And when you do this over time, you start to see patterns. And then you also recognize one of the patterns is they're not talking about certain tricks. He said, get rid of those tricks, replace them with more tricks they will talk about, and you'll create a better show. Now, little did I know that's customer appreciation. And by the way, I did what I was supposed to do as far as the job was concerned. I entertained these screaming little kids at a birthday party, and I think I did a pretty good job. But the next step was to follow up, show appreciation with the thank you note, get information, voice of the customer, hear what they're saying, and act on the feedback. Hence, process improvement. In this case, it was magic show improvement, but it's the same thing. Every client that I work with that gets feedback and actually activates the feedback is doing exactly what I was taught when I was 12. I just didn't know it was called customer experience. So when I graduated college and I started to get excited about doing presentations outside of magic shows for companies in kind of a motivational customer service, not experience type of program, I came up with the ideas of creating moments of magic, avoiding moments of misery, avoiding moments of mediocrity. And then the whole amazing thing started to take off. But it was focused on service. One day, a real smart person started to call that customer experience. It sounded a lot sexier than customer service, right? And then a smarter person said, it's so much more than just service or support. It is every interaction the customer has. This was many, many years ago. And my mind started to shift and change to dealing with more than just the experience of either reaching out when there's a problem or reacting when a customer calls with a problem. So that is the short version of my long life.
Hey, I love the passion behind it, and what a sweet story that it goes all the way back to your childhood from those days of doing magic at birthday parties, but you saw firsthand of the real reaction of that when you do say
Mhm.
thank you, you do follow up and ask what they thought, and then make those data-driven decisions from there. Well, it's clear, Chef, that you've got a passion for this. So today we're gonna talk about exponential consumer. Why don't you define the exponential consumer
Well,
for
and
us?
actually, I was going to ask you to define the X, but no, because a lot of people don't understand what that means. It's just that consumer that's completely connected, and it's not so much that. I mean, the best way to describe it, and we have it here, is the exponential consumer. And I'm going to put my glasses on to make sure I read this properly because it's important to understand. They're always on, always connected, always expecting more. And here's why: today's consumer, and by the way, I'll throw it out, any type of customer, even the B2B world, is experiencing the same thing because anybody that they sell to, that customer is also a consumer. And today's consumers
Mhm.
or customers for the B2B world, clients, guests, whatever you want to call them, anybody that pays you for your goods and services and whatever you sell, these people aren't comparing you to a direct competitor anymore. They're comparing you to the best experience they've had from any company they do business with. And it could be the big Amazon, Apple type brands to somebody like right down the street that's a small business that they love because whenever they walk in, they're always recognized. The expectations are always met. So we keep this in mind that we could be best in class within our industry, but we really need to start thinking world class and start finding what parts of, like, for example, Amazon. What do we love about Amazon? If you really sit down and take a look at what people enjoy about doing business with Amazon, and you look, you can create a nice list. And from this list, we can determine, is there anything in this list that we might be able to put into our business? We're not Amazon. We don't even resemble Amazon. We don't do anything like them. But they're doing some things for their customers that we could be doing as well. And we start looking at all these brands that we love to do business with. Again, place down the street or huge company like Amazon. If we look at those brands and determine what they're doing that we love, maybe we could do some of that for our customers if we're not already doing it. So I know I kind of went off the track a little bit, but there's an example of what that connected exponential customer is expecting. And by the way, companies, same side. We need to do what the customers expect. So we need to be exponential companies as well.
Yeah, yeah, I love your insight on that, Shep, because of course I go right into my consumer perspective and I think, yeah, when another company can't deliver as fast as Amazon with the same level of information and options and all of it, I do kind of think, well, that could be better. But to put those same level of expectations on a smaller company is tough. But if they pick and choose the right aspects to focus on, and it sounds like from your research and expertise here that customer expectations, they're scaling really fast, but
Yep.
AI can help us find some of those solutions. While we can't be Amazon directly, we can copy them in a way, right?
Yeah, and by the way, we don't have to copy Amazon or these other companies, but when we understand what we can do or can't do, we can create the right expectation that the customer buys into and why they love doing business with us. We don't need to deliver 2 hour service like an Amazon or a Walmart might do. We may not even need to deliver an overnight delivery, such as these big brands do. But what we can do is set the expectation that your order will always be fulfilled within 24 hours. We send it to you via whatever the carrier that we want to do. And as soon as that order is placed, by the way, here's a great example. In one of our workshops that we did with a client, we love doing these types of questions. And we put this huge list of things we love about all these different brands. We got to Amazon and some leader in the back said, we're not Amazon. We don't want to be Amazon. And our response was, you don't have to be, but if this is what everybody loves, why not consider, is there a way we can do it? And one of the things that one of the audience members said was, well, I like getting emails from Amazon to tell me, that the order was placed. And that same executive says, we don't want to overburden our customers with emails. I said, it's not the email that the customers love. It's the confirmation that something's happening on their behalf.
Yes.
Your order is placed, your order is shipped, your order has shown up, and there's a picture of the order sitting at your doorstep or at your office or whatever, proving that it was delivered. Customers want that. They don't necessarily love emails, but without the communication, and by the way, it could be email, could be messaging, it could be any type of thing, but we're being proactive about it when we send it out. So this is what this is what customers are expecting in comparing these companies to. We've got to deliver on those expectations, understand what they are, modify them so that the customer knows what to expect and agrees with what to expect. And we'll keep customers by doing that.
Yeah, I like that example. I do love when the picture shows up and I see the package being handed to the person at the front desk, and I think, at least I don't have to worry about that thing during my
Right.
day, right? It's
Right.
those
Exactly.
confirmation emails. Those never seem annoying to me. So I will completely agree. Well, Shep, it said that today's innovations are tomorrow's expectations when it comes to the customer. So, how can businesses keep up when the pace is literally changing every day? It seems like there's a new piece of terminology or expectation to have. How can businesses keep up with it?
I know. I mean, look at the changes that have happened in the last, gosh, just 10 years with AI. I remember going to conferences with IBM and learning about Watson back in the early 2000 teens.
Yeah.
And the cost of doing so was if hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to do what we can do today by buying a simple license for just, I don't know, $20, $30 per person. So as we get into this, we need to understand that's changed. It's less expensive than ever to deliver a bigger experience than we've ever delivered. So important to recognize that. Another thing that's important to recognize is this evolution of technology has allowed us to be on when we haven't been able to be on before, to deliver to customers an experience that we've never been able to deliver. And recognize that if a competitor is doing it and you're not just playing catch up to be technology savvy or on the same level. You're going to play catch up in market share that you lose when your customers aren't getting what you want. You mentioned my research. We have an incredible example of this. And by the way, am I running down a rabbit hole? Well, refresh the original
No,
question for me because I
you
don't
are
want.
great. No, just
Yeah,
talking about just the difference between today's innovations and tomorrow's expectations and
yeah,
that
yeah,
feeling to keep up. Yeah.
yeah. And that's exactly where I was headed with this. So I don't believe anything's changed in the world of customer service and experience, or specifically when there's problems and complaints, and we want to make sure everybody has an experience that gets them to come back. And here's my point. There is a large stone that's in the British History Museum, which is carved, and it's the first complaint letter that has ever been discovered of all time from, I don't know, centuries ago, right? If we take a look at that letter, what happened is a customer bought some copper and was unhappy with the ingots and was complaining to the person who sold it to him and wanted some kind of resolution. If we go centuries into the future, guess what? Same thing. Customer has an issue, complains, brings it to the attention of a company, and at the end they want to be happy. That's it. So nothing has changed from that standpoint. What has changed is the way we go about it. So, for example, my research shows, and every year we've been doing this now for about 6 years, I believe. Yes, 6 years, 2019. And each year we've been asking a question, what's your preference in getting customer support? Do you want to use the phone or some other digital or self-service option? And every year until this year, it's actually been, and by the way, the number even this year is so close. If I did it again, I might get back to the original number. It's been 7 out of 10, 70%. This year it was 68%. Maybe that's a trend. I'll find out next year, but it's hardly a difference worth noticing, which means 70% of customers would still rather use the traditional human to human experience on the phone. But here's what's interesting. The millennials and Gen Zs are different than the Gen Xers and the boomers. So age makes a difference. 62% of customers expect AI technologies to become the primary mode of customer service in the future. And actually, I've got it even more up to that than that. I apologize for it's there we go. Perfect.
I love
Found
it.
it.
New research coming in hot.
You're right. New research coming in hot. So 53% of customers expect us to be able to go to self-service and digital experiences. So anyway, as I mentioned, 68%, 63% said they will reject self-service altogether. So 6 out of 10 say, I don't really want if you don't make me go there, give me the phone option. We flip it to the other side, and that 34% of customers stopped doing business because self-service options weren't available. You have to be able to meet these customers on their terms. If not, they're going to find somebody else that will.
Right. Because that exponentiality goes in every direction. They're growing exponentially with expectations, or they could be growing exponentially in how much they want that self-service option, or to talk with a person, a physical human being versus AI, right? They're probably growing, depending on their age, probably more stagnant in what they prefer. Is that right? Or are you seeing much
Well,
change
I
in a
mean, if you
positive
look at the
direction?
phone, I believe it's 82% of the people who want to use the phone as their first option are baby boomers versus
Yeah.
52% of Gen Z. So you can see this big, huge gap. And I think it's only going to get wider as so many of the younger people who are now becoming viable consumers and some of our most important consumers with buying power, especially as they get jobs and start to stabilize in their lives, they do not know of a world without a mobile device. And I'm using the word mobile device, even though many refer to it as the smartphone and the phone, because many customers, even though they have a smartphone, hardly ever use the phone part of their smartphone. And
Yeah,
so
that's
if we talk about the exponential company and customer, it means that we communicate with them on their terms, which means we adapt to virtually any type of communication mode they want to communicate in. So it's not omni-channel, it's every channel. And by the way,
Mhm.
there are some obscure channels we don't need to worry about. But are we offering chat? Is it chat by AI? Is it chat by human? And if it is chat by AI, which I am completely in favor of pushing digital first, as long as there's a human backup in case it doesn't work and it's seamless and easy. But if I want to go to you by just texting you, emailing you, going on your app, if that's what I choose to do. And by the way, if a customer downloads your app and you can build a relationship through that app, you are creating incredible, intense loyalty with that customer. So how do they want to communicate? So it's any easy device. If I happen to be at work and I'm at my desktop computer, I'm going to go on Google or some other browser and try and find what it is I'm looking for that way. If I happen to be at home, I may just pull out my phone, even though I'm not using it for a phone. So let's make sure we're communicating with them on their terms, the way they want to communicate. And that's what I think this whole exponential customer thing is all about, is the way the customer wants it. And it's increasingly becoming important if you want that customer to say, in the words of the famous Austrian philosopher Arnold Schwarzenegger, he said, I'll be back. That's what we want our customers to say.
Yeah, we really do. And we think about a customer choosing to come back to you time and time again, or maybe telling their friends and family about their great experience. That means there has to be basically no margin for error. So, how does an organization that's maybe leaning towards better customer experience and service, how do they plan for that super high expectation to keep that margin really low?
So you went from no margin of error to keeping that margin low. I think margin low is a more realistic expectation.
Yeah.
It's not if
Yeah.
you'll never have a problem. It's when there's a problem. And so I love this question because I just wrote an article. It's not yet published, probably be another month or so, because somebody reminded me of this term called the customer service experience paradox. I think that's what it was. The word paradox is in there. The customer service paradox. And what it is essentially that when there's a problem and the customer brings it to your attention, the way you resolve it doesn't just restore to what it's supposed to be. It restores confidence in doing business with you again. And the customer service paradox is about taking it to another level where the customer even thinks higher of you because of the way you resolve the issue. Think
Mm,
about that. That's
yeah.
powerful. Like I said from the early part of our conversation, even when there's a problem, that word always, I know they will always take care of me. In a sense, this is what's happened is we prove you bring it to our attention, we will take care of it. We promise we will. That's what we do. And it just heightens the loyalty opportunity even more so. It heightens the confidence. So I love that idea. I've always said the goal is not to fix a problem, it's to fix it and restore confidence. But taking it to the next level, confidence to an even higher level as if the problem had never taken place. By the way, that doesn't mean that you should go out and purposely create problems just to prove how good you can be. That will backfire. There was a company that actually did that case study many years ago, and they found that, yeah, they got caught, and that was not a good thing.
I could see that, right? Like, let's rope them in with a tiny problem and then give an even better offer, right? No,
Yep.
I could see
Yeah,
them getting caught with that. Well, and the idea of incremental improvements towards CX and the whole experience, they're no longer enough according to all the data and research. It's time for a complete reimagining of how CX works. That can sound pretty intimidating, especially for a smaller group or a group that's maybe just beginning to lean into this. Where would you tell them to start when they're looking for those big changes?
sure. Well, first, I actually think the smaller business that's just starting out has a better opportunity than the larger business that's established, or even the smaller business that's established. And here's why. The cost of doing this is so inexpensive. First of all, from the philosophical or cultural standpoint, you need to have a culture that says, we are going to be customer focused. We're obsessed with making sure that our customers love us so much they keep coming back and hopefully refer people to us, right? In order for that to happen, we have to create a process that does that. So we do journey mapping and we take a look at every interaction point, but we need to take a look at some of the technology as well. And what happens when you're new or young and you don't already have technology in place, you realize, hey, this isn't so expensive. AI 10 or 15 years ago cost, as I mentioned, perhaps hundreds of thousands of dollars to do what we now do with a $20 a month chat GPT type of subscription. Okay. And I know NiCE has many programs like this, subscription based, cloud based. I just was working with them and we talked about the Frankenstack, which is like Frankenstein, a metaphor. And if you remember, Dr. Frankenstein put this monster together using parts from all kinds of different places. And if you go into some of the companies that have spent a lot of money in the last 10 years on creating these legacy type of technology, servers, if you will, and they're on premise and they're big and they're bulky and sometimes you get caught up in problems versus in the cloud. It's a night and day cost difference. And what's happening today, I believe, companies who have invested with large amounts of money into that older technology, they're not willing to give it up. They're holding on to it because they haven't felt like they've got their money's worth. So, number one, more than anything, is recognize and I said this before, today's technology inexpensive. Number two, realize if you don't invest in the right technology and your competitor is, you're going to be playing catch up, not only to keep up in technology, but also market share. And then the other thing about this, I think it's so important to recognize this new technology that whatever we choose, make sure that vendor, whether it's NiCE or anyone else you choose, has the capability to upgrade, add on, integrate outside programs. So the people on the inside who are taking care of customers have an easier, better experience. And when that happens, you're merging technology with people. You're pushing digital first, as we talked about a few minutes ago, with a human backup. And when that human backup is there, everything's at their fingertips in one program versus multiple programs that are open as these people on the front line have to jump from one program to the next to take care of their customers. So, boy, that's a lot in a short period of time, but hopefully it puts the idea over.
It really does. And when we think about creating a nice world, it's not about doing what we've always done in the past. It's about redefining what's possible And it sounds like with that proactive approach, seeking knowledge, figuring out what's right for your consumer and your customer, but really focusing on the trends, not pretending like they don't exist and that you are the exception of the organization that won't need to go in that direction, because the best companies out there in the world, they're raising our expectations. You know, the whole level is increasing, so you better keep up. And it sounds like there's so many tools out there, like you said, AI programs, cloud-based programs, where it may seem daunting, but once you get it into action, you can really see those results quickly.
Yeah, it's grasp it, embrace it, recognize it, because today's company, as analog as you may think you are living in a digital world. And so there is some level of digital that you're going to be using. It's some, even if it doesn't appear to be the traditional way that companies are doing it today, you think you're isolated from that. You're really not, because this is, again, what our customers are expecting based on their experiences with others.
Yeah. Well, Shep, I want to thank you so much for your expertise and your time. As we wrap up, which one of your books would you recommend to our listeners who want to start learning more information, or maybe one of your articles you've put
Oh
out?
gosh.
Can you send us in that direction?
Yeah, if you go to my website, hyken.com, there's tons of free resources. All of my articles that I write, at least my personal blog articles, they're right there. If you go to my video channel, sheptv.com, that's my YouTube channel. There's actually over 1,000 videos. Clients or companies, they're free, but they get to use them for their weekly meetings. Book-wise, I mentioned the Arnold Schwarzenegger line, I'll be back. I wrote a book titled I'll Be Back, How to Get Customers to Come Back Again and Again. But I also have another book that's really powerful. I mentioned it's important to start with the philosophy and the culture, and the cult of the customer is a book about developing that culture to create an amazing experience that gets customers to go from satisfied customers to customer evangelists. And that's powerful as well. So I know start with hyken.com. Go there, check out the
Awesome.
blogs, my research, everything's there, no charge. I love that. We just give it away.
Yep. I was there earlier this morning and I was checking out some of your videos. I thought, man, Shep is really doing it all. So thank you so much for your time and thank you for your insights today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.